very dedicated, passionate lady, and she's committed. She's an intercessor, and she's the kind of person that I want on my side. Kathryn, if you come join us.
Thank you so much. Scripture tells us in Romans, when you get older, you have to wear glasses. Isn't it terrible? I went from wearing no glasses to bifocals all in one day. It was just most depressing. Romans 12 tells us in verse 2, it says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. The world is steadily, as you can tell just through what has already been spoken to you tonight, that the world is very much trying to control and conform us to the way that it thinks. And God is telling us that we have to renew our minds and learn the truth so that we might be set free. And I want to tell you, I will copy a little bit of material that Sally had, which is from a different angle. But some frightening stuff going on out there, isn't there? I'm going to have to get used to this, I'm sorry. Safeguarding our children's health and well-being. SECUS, who Sally mentioned, Sexuality Information and Education Council of America, a press release that they sent out back in September of 2010 when the new administration came in and wanted to defund abstinence teaching. And this is a press release that they sent out, and I'd like for you to notice the language. It says, Representative Barbara Lee, California, and Senator Frank Waltenberg of New Jersey introduced the Repealing Ineffective and Incomplete Abstinence-Only Program Funding Act. The bill would transfer funds from the harmful Title V Abstinence Only Until Marriage program, which has funneled over $500 million to the states over the past 15 years, to the new Personal Responsibility Education program, a funding source for comprehensive sex education. Planned Parenthood. They're overseeing the well-being and the health of your children. Advocates for Youth, their mission, they were established in 1980 as the Center for Population Options. Advocates for Youth champions efforts to help young people make informed and responsible decisions about their reproductive and sexual health. Advocates believe it can best serve the field by boldly advocating for a more positive and realistic approach to adolescent sexual health. They focus on rights, respect, and responsibility. Kids, our children, they say, have the right to decide what they're going to do with their sexuality. And that we should respect their rights and not judge them for their rights. And society has the responsibility to provide young people with the tools they need to safeguard their sexual health and provide young people, and young people have the responsibility to protect themselves from too early childbearing and sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV. One of the places on their website where you clicked on abortions, and it said, do I need parental notification if I'm going to have an abortion? And they said, well, a lot of states, you don't have to have parental notification, but there are some states where you do. And, well, if you come in to one of the abortion clinics, that they can probably give you some information on how to get around that. So they're telling you, your children, how to get around having your notification to have an abortion. What is sex education really about? When comprehensive sex education is being sold to you parents, they're told that the goals are to prevent pregnancy and disease. You've been lied to. These curricula are rooted in an ideology that values sexual freedom above everything else. And this sexual freedom includes male, female, male, male, female to female, with oneself, with whatever you feel like being sexual with. They are not discriminatory. According to their philosophy, a successful curriculum encourages students to develop their own values, not blindly accept those of their community. It emphasizes the wisdom they'll gain through open-mindedness and tolerance. Students become more wide awake and open to multiple perspectives that make the familiar strange and the strange familiar, according to one sex education manual. What are these experts hiding? They're hiding their goal to bring radical social change to our culture, one child at a time. Your child, your grandchildren, one child at a time. The philosophies of Planned Parenthood and SICUS, they're influenced by the philosophies of Alfred Kinsey. If you ever read anything about Alfred Kinsey, he was a diabolical man who did sexual experiments on children as young as 6 months, 2 or 3 months. And you don't want to read anything about it, it's horrible. Margaret Sanger, Gloria Steinem, and Playboy founder Hugh Hefner. Their mission is to mold each student into what is considered a sexually healthy adult, as if there was a universal agreement on what that is. It is not about health, it's about indoctrination. When you look at these curricula, there's nothing about health. It's all about sexual activity and how to protect yourself against STDs and pregnancy. And we shouldn't wait, they say, until children ask questions. We should let the sexual education experts teach our children. And in fact, in some states, they want to teach our preschoolers that each of us is sexual from cradle to grave, and that the sexual expression is one of the basic needs, like food and water and shelter. They should be encouraged to have a positive body concept by expanding games such as Simon Says to include private body parts. They want to inform 5-year-olds that everyone has sexual thoughts and fantasies and that people experience sexual pleasure in a number of different ways. Planned Parenthood says 3rd graders should find out about wet dreams and masturbation and rape and sex work, which is about prostitution, those kinds of things. 9 and 12-year-olds should understand that male and female are not defined solely by chromosomes or genitalia. Everyone has an internal sense of their identity, and it doesn't necessarily have to be who's looking at them in the mirror. The information that teens need for healthy development is even more explicit and disturbing. I looked at some websites. This one is positive.org. This is a coalition for positive sexuality, and it's a nonprofit, and they'd like for you to donate to them. And they say it's hard to be different from your friends or to make different choices, but what your friends choose to do may not be what you want. Whether you call yourself lesbian, straight, bisexual, or gay, people are more complicated in their categories and more interesting than those lines. Girl.com. There's a myth. They had a myth and reality section, and they said you won't get AIDS if you're in love with your sex partner, or if you're both faithful, or neither of you thinks you're at risk. That's the myth. The reality is that the only safe sex, their version, can prevent AIDS, monogamy, marriage, being on the pill, or family values won't protect you. With messages like these, it should not come as a surprise that 34% of our girls are sexually active by the time they're 15. The figure goes up to nearly 80% 4 years later by the time they're 19. More than 1/5 of all 15 and 19-year-olds report 2 or more partners in the past year. Who suffers the most? Girls do. Girls are more vulnerable to sexually transmitted diseases. We're obviously the ones who get pregnant. Sex educators gloss over the fact that decades of sex education have taken our society from essentially 2 sexually transmitted diseases to literally dozens of diseases, some of them fatal. 1 in 4 sexually active girls has an STD. 1 in 4 will have had an abortion by the time they're an adult. These sex educators deem it vital for kids to know that there are not 1, but 3 types of sexual intercourse. The sex education that is in your classrooms with your children is not health education. They encourage everyone to be non-judgmental until they themselves are being challenged, even by scientific facts. And when scientific facts are against them, they begin to scream loudly that we're denying them reproductive freedom, or we're narrow-minded, or homophobic, or bigoted. You get the idea. And one of the things that they don't talk about either is emotional distress. Cleve mentioned that I'm a counselor, and having been involved with the Pregnancy Care Center and with young women that I counsel at the counseling center, I can almost tell you after talking with girls for a few minutes which ones have had abortions and which ones are sexually active. I had a 18-year-old come in the other day, and she, beautiful, beautiful young girl, and she sat there and she started telling me about the various sexual relationships that she had had. She was 18, and I sat there and I thought, oh my goodness, where is she going with this? And then she started saying, I just want somebody to love me. I just want somebody to love me. And she was going from person to person, and she didn't understand why these guys weren't loving them, weren't loving her. Jason talked about the internet. I've had girls come in, their parents bring them in because their daughters were being solicited by boys who were in their youth group or in their high school to meet them, sneak out of their house and meet them to perform sexual acts. Young girls, less than 15, with older boys, 17 and older. These are girls who come in, and now it's on Facebook because this guy has talked, and now the girls are ashamed and they're embarrassed. And they're devastated that they've done this. And these are our girls. These are our girls who are getting hurt and they're wounded. Many of you may have fallen into that trap, and as I did as a teenage girl, and we live with those wounds the rest of our lives. God is an amazing healer, but it affects how we live our lives. It affects how we do our lives, how we relate to people in our lives. They don't tell you that when they're giving you all of this information.